You've got ideas, you've got ambition, you've got no time, or so you think. I'm Marissa Lonick, and I help busy moms with big dreams and no time. Join me each week as I dive into time management strategies, goal setting and achieving framework, and inspiring guests who are juggling mom life, work life, fill in the blank life. Dreams don't work unless you do, and just because you're a mom doesn't mean you can't still make it happen, whatever it means to you. Welcome to the Mama Work It podcast. Hello, mamas. Welcome back to another amazing episode of the Mama Work It podcast. I'm so excited to be here today. We have Charise Freeman on the show today. Charise is an absolute natural at creating meaningful relationships. Her passion for authentic women empowerment and mother-daughter relationships was realized and born from contribution of her natural propensity of supporting, uplifting, encouraging, championing, and deeply befriending her sisters in arms and life. Charise naturally mastered the art of contribution to meaningful relationships with women before she set on a path to purposefully improve, grow, and nurture this skill beyond her own current measurements. And most importantly, and ultimately, apply this in her relationship with her daughter. Charise, I can't thank you enough for being here, and I am so excited to dive into our topic today, which is to create those meaningful connections with our kids in the best part, 30 minutes or less. I love this.
Yes. That's my jam.
Yeah. Before we get started, can you just tell us a little bit more about you, your journey towards supporting parents in creating these deeper connections with their kids?
Yeah. Like you mentioned, I helped my sisters in arms, which was in the military. I was in the Air Force for about 8 years. And while in the Air Force, I didn't have a lot of time. I ended up having my daughter while in the Air Force. And I didn't have a lot of time to connect with her because I was working crazy shifts. It was either morning shift, night shift, something crazy in between. And I only got about 2 to 3 hours with her. And that consisted of me dropping her off at school, picking her up, and then taking her to the caregiver's house. So, realizing that I wasn't really spending a lot of time with her, I was like, wow, I have to figure out something. I have to change something. I don't know what I'm going to do. I kind of was in between in 2011. I was in between of if I wanted to stay or go or do whatever in the military. And there were other options to be able to stay in the military and just change jobs and things like that. So my mind was going. And while I was on my last deployment, I was talking to the person that was taking care of her while I was gone. And she asked me this very simple question, which was, hey, what's her favorite food? And I'm like, I don't really know for sure. Let me call the person that takes care of her when I'm at work. And that's when she's mostly interacting with someone as while I'm at work. So I had the conversation with the caregiver and found out that it was macaroni and cheese. And that moment made me feel like, look, I have to get out of the military. This is the one thing that's stopping me from connecting like I would love to. And my goal was to connect more with her than me and my mom had our connection. So I said, I can't do that. Being in the military, having all these crazy hours, it's not working. So I decided to leave the military shortly after my deployment. And it seemed like a really great, thing. It was exciting. I got to do my nails different colors, dye my hair, like all the things you could think of because you're like held to all this stuff when you're in the military. I was so excited to do. I got to wake up when I wanted. I didn't have to go to work at a certain time. I just got out and had a plan to like go to school and look for jobs while I was going to school. So I got to walk her to school. I got to join the PTA. and just participate in like the little but big things, right? So once I was able to do all that, it was around her birthday. We ended up going to the zoo and just do different things that I just wasn't able to. It was just like a quick party usually and on my random day off, you know. So I got to actually spend lots of time with her and do all the things. So I had my son when she was around 6 years old. So it was about a year ish after I got out of the military. And that was fun as well because I got to do all the things that I didn't get to do with her as an infant, right? I got to cuddle all the time, feed him, do all the things, and I'd have to go back to work. I didn't have anybody to answer to but myself. So that was super exciting. I got to pour more into him. And during that time, I was looking for a job and going to school. So I ended up going to this interview. You know, I was juiced about this interview. So I went to this interview. They were like showing me around the place and everything. So I'm like, ooh, I definitely got this job because they don't like, you know, do all that where they show you around if they're not really gonna be like, hey, you know, we want you. So I was like so excited about it. And once I left the job interview, I got this voicemail and it said, hey, you need to call us. It was my daughter's school. So I'm like, okay, what's going on? Let me call them. They said, hey, we didn't hear from you for a while. So we had to like transfer her to this facility. And I was like, well, what happened? Like what's going on? You know, she has asthma. So I was kind of like concerned, like, okay, what happened? Is she at the hospital? And they were like, oh, you know, she really said some concerning things that we rather not say on the phone. And so I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm like racing there, trying to figure out what to do. And for those that don't know, I was getting an interview in San Francisco. So I had to drive all the way back to like Vallejo to to figure out what was going on with my daughter. So I had to like hurry up, get back, and they told me while I was at the school, like, hey, we had to transfer to this 72-hour facility because she made claims that she was going to harm herself. And I said, okay, so we had to go there and like ship her to this facility. I said, yeah, because she not only expressed that, but she expressed how she was going to do it. So then that made her like a danger to herself. So I was just like, what's going on? I felt so much shame. I'm like, take me to this facility. Where is she? So I went to the facility, but I wasn't able to go in. I wasn't able to do anything. They were literally on like this lockdown, and it was like for older people, as I like to say, like a bunch of crazies. That's all I imagine is like a bunch of people in like straight jackets, and she's like the only child there looking around, you know? And I'm like, how can I get her out of there? They said, well, on Monday, because this was a Friday, we'll transfer her to the children's facility. And I'm like, okay, great, perfect. Then maybe I can go there and see and check her out. You know, let's get her out of this place. My ultimate goal was I wanted to not have anyone know that this had occurred. I'm like the poster mom on Facebook. I left the military for her and our connection. So I don't want people to know about this. Of course not. Let's just hurry up and get her to this child facility and we'll take her out and we'll go about our day, right? So once she moved to this facility, I was talking with her at the facility. I'm like, hey, so, you know, are you ready to come home now? You know, and she said, no, I'm not ready to come home. I got friends here, got my own bed here, I got all this food here. And I'm thinking, you have the same things at home. I mean, what's the problem? And I was so angry. And I'm like, fine, you want to stay here? I literally said this to her. It wasn't like me just thinking to myself. I said, you want to stay here? That's your business. Fine. I packed up my stuff and I left. And I was talking to my significant other, who's my significant other now. At the time, we weren't together, and that's my son's dad. I was telling him, like, look, I can't go back to this facility every day trying to get her to leave there. I have to go to school in order to get my rent paid for. That's how I get my bills paid, is by going to school physically, right? And he was just like, what? You need to like just shut up talking to me right now. And I'm like, what's the problem? Are you going to pay my rent? Or are you just saying, like, don't worry about it or what? And he was like, I just want to talk about it because that's your daughter and you should want to do everything. I don't get it. And I said, well, if you're not going to pay my rent, I got to figure out how I'm going to do that. And that's me going to school. So I left angrily with my son, got in the car and like drove off. As soon as I like hit the corner, I dropped every single ounce of my pride and just cried because I didn't know what to do. I'm like, well, I mean, if she doesn't want to come home, it must be something wrong with me. Like, what did I do? Why isn't she wanting to come home? She's saying she wants to harm herself. Why? I created this life for her. I got out of the military. I stopped going to work so much. I'm here for her. What is the problem? And I just, when you cry everything out, you get like this light bulb moment, right? And I thought to myself, okay, let me just call the school, let them know bits and pieces of what's going on and how I can continue to get my payment for rent and everything. And they let me know, hey, as long as you come to school at the hours that you're not visiting her, you're fine. You'll still be attending, so you'll get the money. I said, okay, great. So I was able to visit her 3 times a day and go to school and still get everything paid for. So in my visits, in between those visits, I had counseling for me, I had parenting classes, and I thought to myself, something's wrong at home that I need to fix. Something's wrong with me that I need to try and figure out before I bring her home. If I'm so worried about getting her out of there just to save face that I'm not even thinking about what's really going on with her. So I just stopped everything of trying to grab her and take her home. And I just let her be there. Whatever it was she needed to find out for herself, get some healing within herself that I couldn't provide for her. And I had to do stuff on my own to be able to be better for her when she returned home. So, parenting classes, counseling. I set up counseling for her when she got out, and I set up counseling for the both of us. So, while doing all of that, I realized that the amount of discipline that I was giving her at the time, I was spanking her, and during the courses that I took, they talked about love languages. And just from hearing what they were talking about, I heard like, hey, her love language is physical touch. And with her love language being physical touch and me spanking her communicated hate to her, and her seeing that I was hugging her brother, which is almost inevitable because, with an infant, you got to kind of do all that and hold him everywhere. And so she saw that I was hugging him, holding him, and kissing him and stuff. And she communicated in her brain that communicated to her that I loved him more than her, which she expressed as well. And so I could say all I wanted that that's not true, that's not how I feel, but that's what she felt. So I had to address that. And when she finally said that she wanted to come home, I was like nervous, it was like almost like bringing home a new baby. Like, I don't know what to do. I gotta like fix everything up. I don't know. And so I decided to take her to the library after we brought all our stuff home. We went to the library and it was a safe space, not only for her, but for me. It was a space where I couldn't yell at her or get upset and walk away because she wasn't answering me soon enough. And she loved to read. So we sat down. I explained to her in words that a 7-year-old could understand that I wasn't taught how to love properly, like healthy family love. I wasn't taught that. So I didn't know how. So I was learning it. And I needed help from her to understand what she needed from me. And so we went over like things that had hurt her before and how we can move past them. And I asked her forgiveness each time for each of those things and communicate I would do better. And she also said what she would do for me. And I was still not a huge fan of physical touch, but then it was almost I repelled a lot of touch because I was sexually abused as a child. So I didn't understand what it meant to like hug and be, all those things. And statistically, it says that if you were done that way as a child that you repeat it. So I just went the whole route of I'm not doing anything. I'm not going to touch anybody. I'm not going to hug anybody. I'm just going to just not do any of it. That'll save us all. Right. And she, not knowing, she needed that for me in some capacity. So I let her know, like, hey, I'm not the one to like really reach in for hugs, but I will embrace you if you come to me. I know it seems like I'm not welcoming or things like that, but let's work on that. So she did little things like lay her head on me while we watched movies and touched my leg or things like that so that I just embraced it the best way that I knew how, either by leaning into her, leaning on me, or touching her hand that was on my leg, and it just progressed from there. She was 7 at the time, she's 16 now, and I use different ways to connect with her, to express love for her in a way that speaks to her heart and not just what I thought, which was acts of service and quality time. I did a lot of things with her, and I did things for her, like feed her, give her a roof. I'm thinking this is love, of course, and she wasn't receiving it in that way. So that's how my journey of growing in love together began.
Wow, what a powerful story. Thank you so much for sharing that with me, with our listeners. I mean, so powerful. Charisse, I think a lot of people don't connect the five love languages with parenting. I know personally, when I heard about the five love languages, I was postpartum and a mom had mentioned this in a group I was going to. And I thought, yeah, I totally need that right now with my partner because I'm sure you've experienced this. I know I've experienced this. After you have a baby, it's not always the easiest time to get along with your partner. It's just
Yeah,
not.
yeah.
So that is something that a tool that we used in our relationship during that time. And it was very helpful. And I never thought to myself, this would be a great tool to use with my kids. So for our listeners who may not know much about the five love languages, can you give us an overview and then maybe an overview of how, and you mentioned some great examples, but how this has been helpful maybe with your other kids or just in general with your clients? I would love to hear that.
Yeah. So, the five love languages are ways that we receive love. Language really means like speaking, communicating, right? It's a communication of love. So, those five love languages are physical touch, which is physical touch, hugs, high fives, even anything that communicates love through your fingertips and other methods, your toes, your whatever, and then there's acts of service, which is you do things that they would normally do on their own, but that you just do them for them. And then words of affirmation, which is speaking and letting them know how great they are, but not just how great they are, but why. Why do you see that greatness? What is that from your point of view? And then there is receiving gifts, and that is a meaningful gift that you give to them, and it doesn't have to be expensive for it to be a meaningful gift. And then the fifth one, where did I leave off? Physical touch, words of affirmation, quality time. So quality time is spending time uninterrupted with the person that you love. And I've used this from the time that I learned about it. I used it with my daughter, and as I stated previously, her top love language was physical touch. And there is a love language quiz that you can take to determine which is the top love language. And sometimes there's two that are tied. For me, acts of service and quality time are usually tied. And then the third is words of affirmation for me. So usually the top three shift around based on like circumstances and things like that. That's why I recommend for children to take it every 6 months or so, 6 months to a year, because they're learning what their love language is based off of how much they receive, what they see, all that stuff. So it may change over time. So you want to just kind of keep that in mind as well, but know that it's always going to be the top three kind of just shift around. So if they're bottom two or the bottom two, they will more than likely stay there. This does not mean that they don't need all five of them. That's where I started to learn that, okay, yeah, she likes hugs and all of that, but she doesn't necessarily need just hugs and all of that. It's more of like words of affirmation. She wants to know that she's doing great. And why do I think so? She wants to receive a gift, don't want to leave her out of that. And just tuning into what's needed at the time, because kids want to know that you love them, humans in general, but we're talking about children a lot. And so they want to know that you love them. And what I usually do is when one of them starts to get out of sync or they start to act out a little bit, then it's like, okay, I got to show them I love them somehow, because they're not registering from me cooking for them and doing all this stuff, because I get in my own thing, because you love how you want to be loved. So it's automatic. So for me, cooking is not a big deal. Folding people's laundry is not a big deal to me. And for them, they want to know that they're great. And for me, it's like, I just do stuff and I know that I'm great because it feels good, this feels good for me, feels good for everybody, right? So just knowing that sometime when they act out, it's for your love and they want to make sure you love them. And speaking in their love language is the surefire way to fill their love tank and fill it to overflowing so that they can know that. Before I went to actually work, it took a whole year before that job called me back from that incident, right? They called me back way later. Hey, are you still interested in this job? But the whole time during that year, I filled my kids' love tanks in the best way that I knew how, so that with me commuting and everything else, once I got the job, they didn't lose the fact that I loved them because it was filled already. Right. So I was able to go to work and pour everything into it as a first time worker there and everything. And I was able to sprinkle the love when I got back home and stuff like that. So it's important just to pour as much as you can into them so that they know without a doubt that you love them.
And the way to maximize your efficiency, you're saying, in doing this in the 30 minutes or less, right, is to know how they like to receive the love, is to know their top
Yes.
1, 2, 3 love languages.
Yeah.
Now, where do you recommend people take the quiz? Do you have kids take the same quiz adults take?
On the love language quiz website, it shows you like age brackets. So some kids are able to take it themselves. I believe it's like 9 years and older. They're able to just like answer the questions. If they are younger than that, you ask them questions. And my favorite one is to ask them to draw a picture of how they think a mother or a father, if you're the father, does that to love their children. How do you see a mom loving their child? Can you draw me a picture of that? My nephew, who we recently adopted, is 8 years old. So he drew a picture of like himself, a talking bubble, someone, an adult, and a talking bubble. And that communicated that he loves quality time. He just likes to tell you a bunch of stuff while you sit there and give them your undivided attention. So it's easily determined from a picture, or you can ask them, what does this mean? What is this? And who is this? So
I love that. Yeah, I love that. I'm so going to do this with my kids. This is going to be our next fun activity together. I think it's so
yes,
important.
yes.
So you've got 3 kids, 16, 9, 8. I don't even
Mm-hmm.
pretend to know what the teenage years are like because mine are still 8 and under here. But
Yes.
I've already seen some of like the tween characteristics coming out here, right? Being embarrassed of mom, not wanting to always hold mommy's hand. It's
Mm-hmm.
heartbreaking, but it's coming. I know it. It's all
Yes,
right.
yes.
But I know that's just part of the growth this season, right? So talk to our listeners about the teenage years. Like, what are the challenges that await us for the moms with younger kids? And how can we best prepare for that? How can we start now kind of being proactive for that age?
Number one thing is it's not about you. It's not about you. They are very selfish in their teen years, especially from like 15 ish and on, I assume. My daughter's 16, but she's very much about whatever she wants to do, what she feels like. Um, no one else matters, right? It's just her in her own world. In the teen years from like 12-ish to about 15, they're very sarcastic. And I just say join in with the sarcasm. Like anything. My daughter would be like, "Yeah, so I'm just going to take all the chips and eat them all today." And you're like, "Okay, hope you don't get sick. Don't even give them a lecture about how it's going to make them sick. Don't get they're just sarcastic and they're just going to be that way, right? Just let them do their thing. They're just trying to like process and figure out and be funny." So um that's what the teen years have been like. And realizing that they no longer care about you being right, you being the person that knows a lot, knows everything. They are in the bracket of knowing more about themselves and what they want to do, when in fact they don't know anything. From parents, we know they don't really know a whole lot, but give them credit that they know themselves and they know what they would like to do. And so right now my daughter is in this thing of she needs a job because she wants her whatever she wants, right? We tell her all the time, we'll give you all the stuff you want. We pay her for her grades. So if you have good grades, you get money. So what do you need a job for? She just feels like she needs a job. And we're like, okay, try it out, do your thing, because this is a safe space to try that stuff out, right? We don't want her to be cooped up here, never have a job, and she wants to leave when she's old enough to leave because she wants to get a job. I don't want that to be her number one thing. Like, they won't let me have a job. So let's just let her do her thing. Whatever it is, it's a safe space here. If she doesn't like it, she can always quit the job, come back, regroup, right? So realizing that they're just becoming young adults and they want to do their own thing. They see you doing your own thing and they're like, hey, I can do that too. And just being okay with that, especially them being under your roof, let them make all the mistakes possible and don't be afraid that they're not going to know anything when they leave, or they don't know anything. So why am I letting them do all this stuff? This is the safe ground for them to try everything and experiment.
Thank you for that. What do you think, Charise, is the most important thing to remember when it comes to connecting with your kids, no matter what age?
Be intentional. Be intentional with your connection. You can say, hey, let's watch a movie. And if you are on your phone, you're not being intentional about that connection. So, really just setting the intention and really being there to connect. If you know that their love language is receiving gifts, don't say, oh, I'm at the store. Let me see what I can grab for them. Okay, be intentional about what gifts you are giving them. Don't just throw it in there and be like, hey, here's your thing. You know, be really intentional in every way possible. If you're letting them know you did a great job today, tell them why. Take it a step further. I really enjoy that you tell me jokes when I come home from work because it really brightens my day. And I might have had a horrible day. I might have had an okay day, but your jokes brighten my day. That's why I love that you are such a jokester. Add some more context to it other than you're just an awesome kid. They want to know more than that. Why does she feel that I'm an awesome kid? When you have physical touch, give them the high five, massage their shoulders for 5 seconds, whatever that is, and ask them how was their day. For the ones that you want to spend quality time with, you ask them more in-depth questions. What was the best part of your day? What was the least part of your day? Which part wasn't so great? And why? What happened? And just really spark that conversation and let them know that you're interested. So just be intentional in every part that you're connecting with them.
Love that. I think that goes with any way that you want to spend your time. The more intentional you can be in any of it, the more efficient you're going to
Yes.
be, the more productive you're going to feel, the more fulfilled you're going to go to sleep that night, that you did the things that were important to you, that you wanted to do. And I mean, I think anybody listening can agree parenting is an important thing that they want to do and do well. So it
Yes.
doesn't need to take up all your time. It needs to take up, like, it has to have the right intentionality, the right quality to it, right? I know
Yes. Yes.
when I was contemplating if I should accept a big job promotion back in the day, I was really worried about the quantity of time that I would have at home with my kids. And that almost stopped me from doing it, from taking the leap. And somebody said, "Hey, it's about the quality, not the quantity." And that always
Oh
stuck
yeah.
with me. And I think this is the perfect way to take that and put it into practice, right? Figure out what those love languages are, how your kids really like to receive it. Even your toddlers will probably be able to give you a hint of that in some way,
Yes.
shape, or form, and then utilize that, right, to
Hmm.
the best that you can, even in a short amount of time every day.
Yes. Yes, for
Yeah.
sure. Yeah.
Such good tips here, Charise. Thank you so much. Before we wrap up today's episode, we're hitting the lightning round. Are you ready?
Oh, okay. Yes, yes.
This is where we're going to talk about just random things that are about you so our listeners can get to know you a little bit better. You ready?
Okay. Okay.
Okay. Let's see. What's your guilty pleasure TV show?
The Circle.
I haven't watched that. Okay.
Oh, it's a
Yeah.
social experiment type of show, and it's kind of like the like social media. They are behind the screen and they see people's profiles and they like make friends and connections based off of when they're talking to them via text and all that stuff. It's pretty interesting.
Ooh. I do like the social experiment type of shows. Have you seen Love is Blind?
No, I have not.
Oh, Charisse, you got to check out Love is Blind. Yes, it's a good
Okay.
one. Okay. If you could have any superpower, what would it be?
Hmm. I would say lightning speed, you know, go everywhere
Yeah.
really fast
Yeah.
and do all the
Not
things.
sitting in traffic anymore.
Yes.
For sure. That's a good one. All right. What if you could go on vacation tomorrow anywhere in the world? Where would it be and why?
I would say Jamaica because I just got back from there and it was wonderful and I want to go again.
Yeah, I bet. What book are you reading right now?
um I'm not reading a book right now. I have like a bunch of audiobooks that I'm kind of going through and usually they consist of the five love languages for adults, kids, work, like all the things, five love languages because I really really love and believe in them.
Yeah, yeah. Practicing what you preach. I like it. All
Yes.
right. And what's one app you just can't live without?
Hmm. I would say the Cozy Family calendar app. Yeah. That's
Yeah,
we put everything in there. It tells what we're doing, who's doing what, I love it.
love it. Yeah, we've used that before in our home. Definitely a good one. All right, Charisse, before we wrap up officially, can you tell our listeners where they can find you after the show?
Yes, I am on Instagram at Growing in Love Together, and it's all spelled correctly. And I do want to say how I came up with the name Growing in Love Together.
Oh, yeah, please
And
tell us.
when I was like trying to figure out how to connect with my daughter some more, I was thinking in my mind, like, what have I done wrong? What did I do wrong? How can I fix this? All the things. And a lot of it just came flooding back that I did a lot of things based on myself. I did acts of service because it's what I love to do and receive. And I was concerned about what I did wrong. So it really dawned on me that I just need to take the you out of this guilt that I'm feeling, and to just GILT, which is grow in love together. So that has just been my thing, growing in love together.
That is so beautiful. Thank you for sharing that. Well, go check Charisse out on Instagram, Growing in Love Together. I love how you said spelled correctly.
Yeah.
So important. Yes. And we'll pop that link in the show notes too. So thank you so
Yes.
much, Charisse. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you so much for having me.
You've been listening to the Mama Work It podcast. I hope you've enjoyed this episode and would love if you could take a quick minute to leave me a review on whichever platform you're listening from, and maybe even send a note to a fellow mama friend recommending it. Reviews and recs help this podcast grow and reach more like-minded, awesome moms. And if you haven't subscribed yet, don't forget to click that button so we can stay in touch, girl. By the way, if you haven't checked out the Mama Work It website, please do. There are lots of free resources and great articles there that can help you with the juggle of work life, mom life, wife life, fill in the blank life. So head on over. Thanks again for being part of the tribe. I'll see you soon, but in the meantime, keep on working it, mama.